What is up, guys? It's Doodoo Poker here, back for another video. Today we are going to be talking about a river concept in a 3-bet pot that happens after we c-bet flop and double barrel on the turn. We are on the river as the out of position pre-flop raiser with a value hand. Should we check or should we jam all in? Well, the answer will depend upon the board texture. I brought a hand history to illustrate this, and I want to go over this in MDA, and then we're going to go into GTO Wizard and start doing some node locking. Here is the hand history in question. It was played by my buddy, and I thought it really illustrated this concept. We have pocket kings, we are in the small blind, and we are about 139 big blinds deep with our opponent. Our opponent RFIs on the button. We 3-bet to 10 big blinds, and our opponent calls. The flop comes 9-4-2, two-tone. We bet 50% on the flop with our pocket kings, and our opponent calls. On the turn, brings 2 flush draws and a gut shot with the ace-x, and we decide to bet 75% pot. Now remember, if this is a 100 big blind stack, we should be jamming turn here, but because we're deeper, the SBR is too high to jam turn. This makes the river more interesting, so we bet 75 on the turn. Our opponent calls, and we're on the river. A queen of diamonds comes on the river. Now Hero does something unorthodox. He decides to check his pocket kings. The imposition pre-flop caller decides to bet big with his missed flush draw, and we snap call with kings and scoop a pot. So what is going on the river? We need to think about MDA, and we need to think about how we should be constructing ranges in this spot. Let's look at call, bet, MDA to figure something out. We know call, bet is generally GTO-ish or even under-bluffed at the bigger sizing. The only sizing that is going to be over-bluffed is the small bet on the river once you bet big on the flop. But if you bet 50, all sizings on the river are going to be GTO-ish or under-bluffed. But we need to look at deviations. Let's go to deviations for call, bet. From the 3-bet pot in position pre-flop caller, what deviations do you see? You see boards with a busted flush draw are a bit above average for bluffing frequencies. Now, this board has 2 busted flush draws and a very intuitive gut shot with the ace-x. So all ace-x misses and all the flush draws miss as well. But what do we notice from a triple barrel line? What happens if I decide to just jam all in with my pocket kings? We have to go to call, fold frequencies. What are the highest folding frequencies by regs? River overcard, queen on the river. So that's a bad data point to use for value. What also do we see? Busted flush draw boards. There are 2. So 2 bad data points to bet for value. Let's go back to notes. So we know that there's 2 bad data points to jam all in. The river overcard is going to be overfolded, and the 2 busted flush draws are also going to be overfolded. Conversely, if we check, we know that busted flush draw boards are going to be overstabbed on the river. So there's 3 data points that make us want to check value as a default. If we bet flop and we barrel on the turn and the river comes a blank, we should be checking our value as a default because 1, the overcard on the river is going to be overfolded. This is bad for value. You do not want your opponent to overfold when you have a value hand. Number 2, 2 busted flush draws, again overfolded. Number 3, busted flush draw on the river is overbluffed by imposition. Let's go to GTO Wizard and try to figure this out. So I go to GTO Wizard, and I see if I bet 50 on the flop, my opponent calls, and I bet 75% on the turn, and my opponent calls. That a solver is always betting river. But we should not do this because why? Because if I check in a solver, the button, in theory, never bluffs a hand like 7-6 of spades. He also never bluffs a hand like ace-6 of spades. What about a hand like ace-10 of clubs, ace-10 of spades? These are high-frequency checks. People are not going to play like this in reality. What about a hand like ace-6 of spades? These hands like king-6 of spades, 8-6 of spades, ace-10 of clubs, these hands are going to bluff at a high frequency. So what we need to do is we need to node lock button to over bluffing and see how the small blind responds. That's what I do, is I change my opponent to start bluffing all these hands. And now what does small blind do? Small blind now mostly checks kings on the river. You want to play your value in a way to maximize EV. If your opponent is overfolding on an overcard river and a busted flush draw river, you do not want to use this line for value. Conversely, we know that they also overbluff on a busted flush draw when they get checked to. So 3 data points that incentivize us to check value on the river. After c-betting flop, after betting turn, we should be playing passively with our value. All right, guys, I thought this was a cool concept to illustrate how you can deviate from a solver based on population tendencies to gain EV. Great hand by my friend, and now if you're in the spot in the future, you know to be checking your value as a default and let your opponent overbluff. If you enjoy this type of content, please give me a like, please give me a subscribe. New video every single day, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.